Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Wendy Corbin, and I am the VP of Sales at Intellitect. Intellitect is a software development company located in Spokane, Washington. We specialize in supporting social services. This webinar explores how case management safely use AI with private client information using the right tools and the right practices. First, today, we will show you how to use widely available AI tools safely with sensitive client information. Then we'll see Case Amplify do the same inside a connected workflow. Provide a checklist and reusable prompts so that you can use those in your daily case management tasks. Our goal is for you to leave with a clear sense of where AI can help you in a safe way and provide a better understanding of how to reduce documentation without losing judgment. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Casey. Casey?
Thanks, Wendy. Hi, everyone. I'm Casey Shadowitz, Customer Success Lead for Case Amplify. Let me say one thing up front. The second half of today is all about our product, but the first half isn't. Everything that I will show you works with tools that you can already buy and may already be using today, and you'll leave with a checklist for evaluating any AI tool and a set of prompts that you can use in your cases tomorrow. I've spent years sitting with case managers, program staff, and subject matter experts. First, on a case management system called ICMS, and then building Case Amplify from its inception. Trying to understand where this work actually gets hard. I was also involved in preparing Case Amplify for its SOC 2 and HIPAA audits, and I helped maintain those compliance controls so when we get into BAAs and what a vendor will and won't give you or sign, that's not theory for me. What I want you to leave with today is straightforward. A clear sense of how AI can take some of the documentation burden off of you, and the confidence to use it without putting yourself, your organization, or your client's data at risk. So the question is, can we use AI with client data? And the short answer is yes. The right tools and the right habits, you absolutely can. We'll follow one fictional client check-in the whole way from conversation to case note. And you'll leave here with a checklist and reusable prompts that you can use. But what's the foundation? There are two things that make it safe. The first is the right tools, judged on 3 criteria, which we will talk about next. And the next is the right habits, which we will touch on throughout, and that can be found in the take-home packet that you'll receive today. What is that checklist? Well, it breaks down into 3 gates. The first gate is the paperwork. Will they stand behind their tool? The second is your data. What will they actually do with your data? And who will have access? And the third gate is control and proof. Do they provide you with the admin controls and auditability that you need? Out of all of these, the most important is the first gate. It really is a hard stop. If they fail it, you don't want to continue with them. So, the paperwork. What we mean by will they stand behind their tool really is, 1, will they sign a BAA or Business Associates Agreement? Or, for those that don't require HIPAA compliance, will they provide you with a DPA or Data Processing Agreement or Data Processing Addendum? Next, is it available, the BAA or the DPA, on a plan that your organization is actually buying or may have already purchased? 3, can they show a SOC 2 Type 2 report? This isn't always required, but is really a great way to know if they are adequately securing and keeping their system safe from outside intrusion. Really though, if there's no BAA or DPA, then there should not be any client data that is put into that system. Full stop. Next, gates 2 and 3 together. These really aren't hard stops. They're just questions that you need to be able to ask and get answers to know if they're the right choice for you. For gate 2, about your data, you want to answer, do they train on your inputs? Do they take the information that you're sending into their system and use it for training future models, ways that some of that data could leak out? Do they retain your data? Depending on your work and your clientele, it can be important for your data to either be retained for a set period of time based on regulations or compliance, or that there is zero data retention of your data. So be sure to ask if they have short or zero retention options. And last, do they have subprocessors? Subprocessors really are a big trap here. A tool often chains many other vendors together under the hood, cloud host, speech-to-text service, and other models. And your BAA, or Business Associates Agreement, has to cover all of those, not just the vendor that is providing you with the service at the front door. So make sure you know who they are and that your data will be safe. Also, it can be relevant, depending on your funder's requirements, that you ask about where your data is stored and where it is being processed. For gate 3, control and proof, ask, do they provide role-based access, audit logs, both for changes and for viewing of the data, the ability to delete on demand, and admin or SSO controls. These can all be very important for your organization and may be deciding factors in your case. Next, we want to watch for some red flags and some gotchas. Things to look out for are them saying we're HIPAA compliant on their website, but not actually offering a BAA. Across all of the vendors that we surveyed sites for, we found that we're HIPAA compliant is a phrase that is doing a lot of work out there in the market. Ask for assigned BAA. It is critical. Next, we use your data to improve our models. This means that they do train on the data or input that you provide. And if they don't provide the ability to opt out, that's definitely a red flag. Claiming to be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, or that they observe SOC 2 controls, but are unwilling or unable to provide you with their audit report. This is important to know that a third party reviewed their business as well as their technical side to ensure that it is compliant and meets those requirements and those controls. If they won't provide you with a DPA and you don't need a BAA, that is also a red flag. You need to know how they're processing your data and where it is being processed. And finally, a gotcha that we're probably all the most familiar with is using a free or consumer tier tool for real client data. The one rule to remember is if it will see client information and you need a signed agreement no training on your data, and the paid or covered tier of what they're offering. But who actually signs BAAs? Well, for model providers, you have some options, but remember that paying isn't being covered. For each model provider, they have different tier plans for their offerings, some of which offer these agreements and some do not. For Claude, it's your enterprise plan or using the service through the API only. For ChatGPT, it's their enterprise plan, their EDU plan, their new healthcare offering, or their API. For Gemini, it is any of the Google Workspace editions with the exceptions of the Business Base and Essentials Starter. And when it comes to using the API, you do have options there as well. You can get it directly from the provider, or you can use it via a cloud provider that you already are familiar with, Azure, AWS, or Google. Most importantly, though, always re-verify that the exact tier and plan you're purchasing provides the coverage that you need before that you rely on it. And outside of your LLMs, the model providers, we're also going to need some way to get our conversation into text. So where does that transcript come from? Well, remember that recording or transcribing a client is its own compliance decision and carries its own consent conversation with that client. There are dedicated note takers that many are currently using. These include Fathom, Otter, Fireflies. Some of these you may be familiar with. They're a little expensive, and there are cheaper options, but all gate their agreements for business associates agreement or data processing agreements behind their enterprise plans. Good news is, many of you are probably also using, or may only be using, Teams and Zoom, which are actually already covered. Any of the paid Microsoft 365 plans carry the BAA, and Zoom offers this as a self-service toggle. The real risk with these isn't the contract, it's where that transcription lands by default. Many of these store in a shared location or in a cloud location. And you want to make sure that that is secured and safe so you know who views that data or who has access to it in general. Make sure that you are compliant. Next, we want to make sure we match the tool with the task at hand. And here we're going to break between our two different offerings or two different options. The consumer tool, which everyone has access to. And for these, you can actually do some real work. But really, you're limited to only the summary, and before using anything sent into that, or rather sending anything into that consumer tool, you want to be sure to strip out all of your 18 safe haven identifiers, as well as any confidential information, client or otherwise, you don't want potentially being trained on. For extracting data, you don't really have an option here because many of those pieces of information that you're trying to extract are or will include identifiers or confidential information. If you're on a BAA or DPA covered tool, you have a lot of options. It can be used for summaries and notes. No redaction is required here of any of those identifiers or confidential information, but you can find better results if you do strip out some information that is not relevant to the task at hand. And extracting data is absolutely available, including all of the identifiers. Below each of these, you can see just a small snippet showing an example between two case notes that were taken using a consumer tool with information stripped out of the input, and of our covered tool with no information redacted or stripped out. You can see the one on the right is quite a bit more useful, giving you real dates for those tasks or those actions. So what's our demo process here? What am I going to show you? Well, we're, as we stated at the beginning, going to take a conversation and bring it to case notes. First, we had that conversation in Teams and took the transcript that it provided us, along with some prompts that we're going to be providing you today, into Claude to get the results that we were looking for. Prompts that we'll be using today are the master instructions, the summarize prompt, the extract prompt, and the draft note, case note prompt. But one more thing to touch on before we start. What are prompts and why are they important? Well, let me just show you what it looks like to get a case note out, or attempt to get a case note out or a summary out from a conversation. This is with the transcript that we will actually be using here. And what the results are if you include just a basic prompt here saying, give me a summary of this conversation. Now, it's not bad. There's definitely useful information here. But I'll show you that we can get much better if we include better, more tailored prompts that will give us the exact thing that we're looking for. So, for our demo, we're going to be talking with Marisol. This is a fictional snap check-in. Because the data is all fictional, there's no BAA required here. But in a real workflow, this belongs in your covered workspace. So let's begin. To start, I'm going to be taking the master instruction prompt and putting this into Claude. So it has some information about things that we do want it to do, things we don't want it to do, and that we'll be reviewing every piece of information that comes out with a sign-off. We want that included at the bottom of each of those artifacts. We also included in there some gotchas or some guardrails that we want it to watch out for and to stay within. We see here that it understands. Now we're going to paste in our client conversation transcript, which it will then take and provide us a case note for. I'm going to do some processing, looking to understand the details of that conversation. And then, as we can see, we get a case note with all of the relevant data that we're looking for. To start, it has some basic information, including the date that we had the conversation, information about the client, some of our action items, and some key notes that we want out of that conversation that are relevant to Marisol's case. We can also see that it provided that review and sign-off section that we asked it to provide at the end of all of the artifacts that it produces. Next, we're going to summarize the client conversation. And this will be the most akin to what we got in that first, or rather, before we started the demo. And we can see here that it included a lot more information, and it's quite a bit more organized, showing us individual details and facts, information about presenting needs, and then going into other details, including things like actions taken and next steps. And again, finally, with our review and sign off there at the end of that summary. And next, we're going to have Claude extract out some data from our conversation. This will include identifiers, case data, and action items or referrals we discussed with the client during that conversation. Now, Claude is breaking out that information from the conversation into blocks of CSV data so that we can easily get this out and into another case management system or into wherever we store our data for our cases. Again, it's important to note here that we do have that review and sign off at the bottom. And finally, we're going to create artifacts out of these. So instead of this information being in our chat here, we're going to have Claude create documents and CSV files that we can download and save to our computer and then utilize however we need. This can often take a little bit of time. But what we should get out of this is 4 or 5 different artifacts, each of which has its own purpose and value. And there we are. We've got our case note, just as we saw in the chat, with all of the information that we were able to get out of the conversation. Case summary, all the key facts and actions, the identifiers, broken out into a CSV, the other case data, and the action items and referrals, also broken out into a CSV, which we can download really quick and easy. So let's go back and review what just happened. We had one conversation and we got 4 different outputs. A summary, structured data, action items, and a draft note. That structured data includes both the case data and the identifiers, all from that one conversation. The AI drafted, and we are given a chance as the human to review and sign off on each one. And we saw a difference in the quality. The only thing that changed between that before image that we had and what we got out here was the context we provided. Let's look at those side by side though, real quick. On the left, the results from our simple prompt. And on the right, an example of results from our better prompts. Here we can see we can actually get a full SOAP format out without doing that much work, simply by improving the prompt. What's the catch? This is the one part that makes this kind of difficult. On the right side, I do want to point out, here we've got a breakdown of all the identifiers in there. So if we're using a non-covered tool, we have to make sure that we replace or redact out 50 different identifiers just from one conversation. And it was really only about a 5-minute conversation with our client. Even if we are using a covered tool, we still have to use multiple tools, one to get our transcript or record, and another to get the information out and to garner the benefits of AI's capability. We also have to run through a mental checklist every time to make sure that we're getting each piece that we need, the summary, the case note, the structured data, and then we have to re-enter all of that data into our case management system if it doesn't have these tools integrated into it. So, what if all that lived in one connected and compliant place? And that's what we'll be talking about in part 2 with Case Amplify, which I'm going to hand off to Elizabeth to talk about. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Casey. My name's Elizabeth, and I'm the product owner of Case Amplify, a case management platform that addresses the two main problems that Casey just highlighted. First, the hoops you have to jump through to make sure you are handling data in a compliant manner. And second, the time consuming and somewhat disconnected process of taking a conversation, turning it into notes and structured data, and finally getting that into your case management system. As product owner of Case Amplify, I basically run the team of developers who built this platform, and it's my job to help ensure that the product serves our users first and foremost. My goal is to understand the challenges faced by people working in social services so we can support them with tools that make their jobs just a little bit easier. In working with caseworkers tackling the hardest problems, I've learned how AI can help reduce administrative burden and allow them to connect with those they serve. I'm excited to introduce you to our system, which weaves AI directly into your case management workflows and handles the data security and compliance for you. All right, let's get started. So Case Amplify is able to turn conversations into documentation and structured data, very similar to how Casey demonstrated earlier with Teams and Claude. But it isn't just a transcription or note-taking tool. This is just one aspect of a full case management platform. We've designed this system to support your case management needs from intake to closure, with the goal of giving human services staff more time with people and less time managing documentation. For example, once data is extracted from a conversation transcript, this data is added directly to the individual's case, and from there, we're able to automatically create case notes, fill out forms, build reports, and much more. At each level, the goal is slightly different. Reduce repetitive work for caseworkers, preserve context across teams, and turn everyday casework into consistent report-ready information for programs. While there is a whole lot more to Case Amplify than what I'm about to show you, today we'll focus on how the system uses AI to turn a client conversation into reviewed, structured documentation that stays connected to the case record. Before I jump into this demo video, I just wanted to give a brief overview of what it is you're about to see. Case Amplify allows your organization to define the specific information that you want to gather going into a conversation, depending on what is most important for you to figure out next steps for the client or to meet reporting requirements. And this is not only easy to set up, but also easy to update as requirements change and your programs evolve. By setting this up in Case Amplify, we are able to give you a really nice guided experience both during conversations and across the case lifecycle to make sure that the right questions are always being asked and the right information is always being recorded, while allowing you to focus more on the person sitting in front of you and building that relationship with them. So starting with this first page here, you'll see that we're having the same conversation that Casey demonstrated earlier with our fictional character Marisol, but within Case Amplify. On the right, you see a list of questions that are recommended for you to ask. You don't have to say these word for word, they're just there to help you stay on track and make sure that you're covering everything. Once the conversation is completed, we send that transcript to AI, and it is able to analyze the transcript and automatically extract all of the data we need from that conversation. On this page, you're able to review and correct anything. You're also able to see exactly where it came from in the transcript itself. You still get a conversation summary that goes along with this, but you also get this really nice structured information that is added directly to the case. We will also suggest next steps for you based on action items that might have been discussed during the conversation, both for yourself and for the client, and you can automatically add these tasks to the case and start tracking the next things that need to be taken care of after this conversation. Navigating to the case page now, the main case page, we have a case summary that is regenerated every time new information is added to the case. So since we just had a conversation with Marisol, we'll see details pop up there so that the next time I come to this case, I'll see the most important details at the forefront. We also automate case note creation for you. So you can already see we have a case note for the conversation that was had and the task that was added after that conversation. And here we have the data points page, which is where all of the data from conversations over time, manually inputted data shows up. And we not only show the data that you have collected, but also the data that you might be missing so that you know exactly what you need to do after this conversation to make sure that you're staying on track and keeping the case moving forward. As you can see, there are a lot of benefits to using a system like Case Amplify as opposed to trying to keep everything connected, up to date, and secure on your own. First of all, we are designed for sensitive work. We are both HIPAA and SOC 2 certified, and none of the data that is stored in Case Amplify or sent to AI is used to train our models. This system also helps to reduce administrative burden as you're no longer needing to spend time copying, pasting, and re-entering information from one place to another. And since everything is connected in one place, it is a lot easier for teams, supervisors, and caseworkers to maintain a consistent and up-to-date view of an individual and stay in touch with all of the latest interactions and progress for that case. And while we do use AI to do a lot of really cool things in Case Amplify, people are still ultimately those responsible for reviewing, correcting, and approving AI-assisted information. We make it really easy for you to review information that comes from AI, like I showed with the data that is tied to portions of a transcript. And on top of that, we maintain detailed audit logs that track changes made by both AI as well as staff within the system. Overall, Case Amplify allows you to worry less about making sure you're doing all the right things to use tools outside of your case management system correctly, delegate more repetitive tasks to automated processes within our system, and focus more on building relationships and providing the support that only a person can.
Next up, we're going to move into Q&A with Casey and Elizabeth. If you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. We'll also answer some commonly asked questions that we hear about Case Amplify. Our first question is this information public, or can we share it with people to be aware of this new AI tool for our industry, to help everyone at some point have this tool integrated in agencies?
Absolutely. Both the prompts that we share with you today, as well as information that you'd like to share about Case Amplify, feel free to share that with your community, with your coworkers, colleagues, and yeah, we're just here to help as much as we can.
So the next question is, will Case Amplify sign a BAA or provide a DPA?
Yeah. So we will absolutely provide a BAA or a DPA to any organization that is jumping onto Case Amplify. We want you guys to feel as comfortable using the system and able to trust the security and the efficacy of the system as much as possible. So if or when you sign up, absolutely just let us know that you need one of those agreements and we'll make sure to get that to you.
And that's at no additional cost to it. If you're paying for Case Amplify, then that comes with the package.
Absolutely.
The next question is, do I need to get consent from a client to record a conversation using Case Amplify?
That's a great question. So, whether you're using Case Amplify or you're using something like Zoom or Teams, gathering consent from the person that you're having a conversation with is kind of its own separate process, and it's more so dependent on state laws or your organizational policies. But if that's something that your organization does need to do, then we can provide ways for you to track whether that consent has been gathered from that individual within the system. And there are also alternatives, like in Case Amplify, as far as automating the collection of data if they don't consent to having conversations recorded.
That's a great point.
The next question is, do you use your own AI models or do you rely on services like ChatGPT or Claude?
Yeah, so we actually do use ChatGPT or GPT models. The models are all coming from Azure, from their secure Foundry offering. We utilize those along with some proprietary prompts as well as orchestration that we have built out in Case Amplify to really give you the most benefit that we can without having to train on client data or anything like that. So yeah, the models are the same ones that everyone else uses. Our tricks are really in the things that we do with orchestration and meta prompting.
And while we're not training the models, we do also do pretty extensive testing as soon as we introduce a new model or we want to upgrade to something new, not using any personal data, of course, but we do a lot of testing with our own prompts just to make sure that they're producing the outputs that we want and that they're doing what they should be within a case management system.
The next question is, how does Case Amplify record conversations, and what type of information is the system looking for?
Yeah, so Case Amplify does have the ability to record conversations, as you saw. The recording is done using the microphone on the device that you're using or through Teams or Zoom call. That is then sent into a model that takes a transcription. And what was the last part of that question? Oh, what information? Thank you. And then, yeah, the information that's gathered from the conversation is really just any of the information that your organization is trying to collect. That is all completely configurable for each individual organization that jumps onto Case Amplify, making it as flexible as possible for your needs, whether it be information that you're trying to collect about demographics or information that is required for your funders or for your regulatory needs.
Are there other AI features in Case Amp?
There are a lot of other AI features. We just wanted to focus on what it can do around conversations, but I believe we'll be covering some of the other AI features that we have in future webinars. Some of the things we do include automating workflows, so just automating processes within the system based on events that happen. You know, maybe a new case comes into the system and you want some message to be sent out or someone to be notified. We help automate a lot of that using AI.
Data extraction from documents.
Yep.
So any standard document or historical document that you have that you need to take data out of for a case or a client, the system is able to help you do that in a really easy and automated fashion.
Yeah, including, like, I guess, handwritten forms. So if someone fills out a form, you can send in the document and pull all of the data out of there.
Now, one caveat, if you write too much like a doctor, we'll see how well it works. But absolutely, we are able to do both handwritten and printed out or standard documents like that. So
we also have a built-in AI assistant named Kara. She can do a lot of really cool things in the system, so we'll probably cover that at some point just to help you with your daily case management tasks. And there are a few others on top of that.
Yeah, so definitely keep your eyes open for updates coming out from Case Amplify with regards to upcoming webinars or events. And you'll learn more about these things and how you can do some of these things outside of Case Amplify as well in our upcoming events.
One other thing, we also have a Case Amplify website that you can go to find more information. I think there's a QR code that will be shared later, but we can also send information about that after this webinar in case people are interested in going to the website to learn more.
Describe the onboarding process for people curious about getting set up and how that process goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of depends on your organization, both your size, the complexity of the information that you're trying to collect, whether or not you have forms that you need to be filling out external to your organization or internal to your organization. There are a lot of factors that go into it. But what the process really ends up looking like is either a direct full configuration where we will work with your team and your SMEs or subject matter experts to understand your case workflow, the information that you're trying to collect, and help you get that configured. Or we can do a smaller, more of a pilot program where we'll bring on a small team, individuals from multiple teams, or a specific program that you run into Case Amplify so you can see the benefits and get that experience in the system. We try to make it as easy as possible while being as flexible as possible for your needs.
And we also help to train some people in your organization so that even after we get everything initially set up, we want you to also have the ability to go update things in the system, so that you don't always have to reach out to us for small changes.
But of course, you don't lose us in that process either. We're always available to help answer questions or help you figure out how to configure or set up new things.
So that's all of our questions for you today. If you have any questions that you'd like to answer that we didn't cover, please go ahead and contact us. You can find our information on the website.
Oh, and one last thing, we didn't forget, we will be sending you email with the prompts that we used today and potentially some additional test data and other goodies along with that you can utilize tomorrow or in the coming days with your case management, as long as you've got a covered system. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Casey. Some of the key takeaways that I heard during this webinar are that AI can be used in case management when the right safeguards and agreements are in place to protect the client's information. AI can also turn a single conversation into summaries, to-do items, and structured data while keeping staff in control of the review and approval. Case Amplify brings conversations, documentation, and workflow, tasks, and reporting all together in one connected platform, which reduces the administrative work of your teams and gives more time for you to support people. If you're interested in learning more about Case Amplify, please scan the QR code and email us, and we will schedule a demo tailored to your organization's needs. Thank you all for your time and attention today, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.